Okay, good friends of the world that is and is not my own. Welcome back to the Fringes of Second Life. This is the third part in what could potentially be an endless series, at least endless for for the Fringe itself. But who knows how long I will be involved. If you recall, last time we left off with this strange Kid Island, where we investigated some of the more curious elements of real estate as it operates in Second Life. And today we are going to continue exploring. I will chat a little bit about what we see here, and I have some notes that I'm going to touch base upon, and hopefully they will aid the conversation. This is supposed to be a 30-minute long romp through the world, and I will try to keep it as close to that as possible. I have no intention of this being popular for any particular subset of people or demographic population. So it could, who knows if this is going to be appealing to you or anyone else we know. Kid Island is a space open for real estate development. It has these strange box items that are available to be clicked on, and when doing so, you can receive information on renting the space. So this is all about renting. As you can see, before I called this a very hideous place, but that leads us to the theme for this week, and it's a broad theme because I really didn't want to limit myself by being too specific and narrow in what I wanted to talk about. But this week's theme is on beauty in the virtual world, and particularly beauty in Second Life, because that's where we're at, what we're dealing with. And in the case of Kid City, I think that it's clear that there is not much to it, but by the same token, there is a lot to it. There's a lot that is inviting people in to explore. Now, if I go over to those trees, I've already been over there, and I know that they look really, really horrible from this vantage point, and chances are they're going to look horrible when I get close. Indeed, they do. And the same goes for these really, really haphazard, almost childlike playing around with the geography and the terrain. It looks like someone was in an editor and just moved their mouse up and down a little bit to create some change in the landscape. And that might be the case, but at the same time, what is the function of aesthetics and what is the function of beauty? In real estate, one might say the goal is to make something look beautiful so that someone will buy or rent what you have to offer. In this case, we're seeing a lot of openness as well. There's things you could do with this space and things you could not. I think it's really interesting, as I notice that my pumpkin latte is still in my hand. It's interesting to take note of how people do invite you to understand and become appealed to the landscape. In general, Second Life offers a certain degree of aesthetic built into the system. The sky and the ocean, which are dynamically changing with a virtual clock, virtual time, reflect the beauty of the world. For now, we have a peaceful daylight atmosphere, and if I stand here long enough, I will see the sun go down, and eventually I will be involved in the nighttime. Other virtual worlds like Minecraft afford the same realism or quasi-realism. I would suggest that it gives a little bit of excitement to an otherwise boring terrain, and also allows your virtual world, which is hopefully mimicking your first world, or a first world that you know, it provides some context and some diversity in the experiences that reflect off of the virtual as a simulation. So, last time we did explore this, and I really would love to sit around in Kid City for the rest of my existence, and I'm sure there are people that are living their very minimalist and or Zen lifestyles on similarly vague pieces of property. However, we do have a few goals to have put in place here. Now that we have Kid City around, I'm wondering about the previous time that we talked and I explored, and it looks like Tokyo City was the last place. And actually, I think when I logged in, I was in Tokyo City, but it booted me out for some reason, and I was sent to a place that I was unfamiliar with, and I did not hang out there too long. It looks like it wasn't even recorded, that redirect. So now I'm back at Kid because I wanted to start the video here. I'm going to head over to Tokyo City, where we had been enveloped in some mild Halloween regalia, some strange robots, lingerie, a cafe, an unmanned cafe, or unhumaned cafe, I should say. Maybe that's even too specific. An unavatared cafe, and the potential for exploration. So let's try to see if Tokyo City is available today. Okay. I remember being just as baffled last time there was the load screen, and it looks like, yes, Tokyo City is in existence. It still looks a little bit creepy. I'm not quite sure if that was intended to be for Halloween after all, or if perhaps it's something otherly, and something that fits a different kind of fantastical and eerie theme. We'll explore that in a moment. And as I'm walking around in first person, I will talk a little bit about First Life and the integration between the two. Yes, it always looked creepy from this vantage point, but I remember it was because I could never see from this zoom, from this perspective, that we were looking through a tinted glass window, and so if I zoom in all the way, I can easily see that there's actually no roof above this courtyard, unless you count that as a roof, of course. And so we do have a bit of a filter here. Before we go into the store of Insomnia, which will offer plenty of ideas and distinctions in itself, it seems like it's worthwhile stepping through this wall into a much loved maple leaf floor. It's so abstract. I'm going to shut up for a moment and just move along into the store. It looks like the minimap shows no other characters, no other avatars, making this adventure fringe-worthy. I should note too that I'm pretty sure the music and sound has been turned off in my settings. Some of you might find that annoying, but I think it is very distracting, and it actually increases the downspeed time for a lot of the engagement here, decreases that, making for a much worse experience. So it does look like there's plenty of wear, though it does look like I do remember there being free lingerie available, but I'm not seeing it. These all look like very expensive and quite unique pieces. We have a lot of Japanese-inspired pieces because we are in a Japanese-inspired place. It looks like now there's a sale of some sort, a hunting sale. Well, perhaps what we were referring to is back over this way. Some nice pigeon-like, gull-like birds here. So I'm going to explore a little bit and stop talking about what we're seeing, since it's obvious what we're seeing is what you're seeing and what I'm seeing, respectively. I did want to, however, mention about first life integration. It seems relevant to point out the context that I'm coming from, and that context is the first world, the first life that I'm living in, at least so you know a little bit more about the interactions that I'm having. I live in a city. It wouldn't be very hard for you to figure out which city that is if you actually did some of the research from where my other videos take place. I work in a library. I'm interested in software development and obviously virtual worlds, but virtual engagement of culture. Nail control. Okay, I have some nails now, I think. Looks like there is some sound actually in this space. Well, I've always wanted to take Trillion for a drag spin, so maybe this is a blouse and skirt kind of. Yeah. We'll experiment with that later. And, we have physical food, and we have physical activities, physical jobs, and physical friends. All of these things I hope to believe that I have, and I'm trying not to taunt anyone or tout any of my ideas too heavily here, but my existence is fairly average in the first world. And so it's curious to explore a rather dramatic space that is Second Life, because it's anything but average at any time. Even those things you might consider mundane are never average. So one thing I'm curious about as we explore is seeing how the first life filters on into the second life, and that's a conversation that would take a long time and probably a lot of positively rational and thorough construction to understand. But at the same time, it is an element of existence, an element of philosophical thought that can apply to all of these crazy adventures and vague conversations that I'm having. It's definitely a question and an interest that is underpinning most of what I'm thinking about when I'm flying around or running around in this virtual world. So it looks like as we move on, we are now at Insomnia. We checked out the 2 stores outside Insomnia, which could be owned or might not be. Actually, we didn't really see this. It does look like this is a very, very peculiar, and it's inside the shade. It looks like that might be left over from Halloween, actually. It's very peculiar that it even exists there with that vortex of smoke texturing out like that. Let's take a look at what Insomnia proper is. We have these strange beings, which are... what are they calling them? Nobodies? Can't sit on one. Flying Halloween kids. Okay, that explains it. I do remember the hopping guys and gals. And there's my color stereotypes coming out. And it looks like we do have... I don't even know how to respond to that. Looks like we do have some creepy stuff going on there. Halloween has only since been over, so depending on how often this gets updated, the Halloween objects could be around for a while, at least until Thanksgiving. How often do you see butterfly textures on mannequins? I wish I had seen that in life. Real first life. I was hoping that would be a sliding glass door. Looks like that one is. Okay, let's take a look. I'm really hoping that this isn't as boring as I think it's going to be, with the occasional peculiar aesthetic fixation. What is beautiful? Well, we certainly have a well-lit place, which can certainly be... Oh my goodness. Wow. This is an entire interface. Wow. Oh my. And it's downloading additional items. If I was on a touchscreen, this would be very fun. And most of these actually, it looks like they have textures, but they're black and white, but I don't think they're actually textured. Which, yeah, it looks like... Gift cards are not accepted. Looks like this is a very complex way of getting exactly what you want for your avatar. Way out of our league, our intro league. I'm perfectly satisfied with my yellow top and jean bottom and matching yellow shoes. Those are pretty cool. And it looks like we have teleporters involved as well. I'm surprised actually that there hasn't been a bot that's imposed itself upon us, or a player that's logged in at this point to say hello. Of course. Wow. Tipping pick. I don't even know how to respond to this. Any of this, actually. Confusion. If you're thoroughly confused in a virtual world, is there still room for beauty? Or does beauty end up getting outlined so strongly that it's covered by that confusion? And thus, are you blinded? In many of ways, this is a great sense of filtering from the physical, tangible universe. And it also affords a lot of absurdity that one might find it more difficult, depending on where you live, of course, to create. I'm reminded of the storefront windows here in my city, where you have very, very postmodern displays of fashion. I think we've spent more than enough time here, but we should probably try to use the teleporter at least once. A very large thumbtack. Can we sit on the thumbtack? No, we can just sit down and admire. Drop me a note card. If we touch that, does it go up? Or is it an automatic? Is there an automatic sensor? Let's take a look if we... must be automatic. In a little bit we're going to do another random teleportation, and I was trying to think of an appropriate way to... Oh, that was no good. Are these all teleports just around here then? It looks like that could be the case. What's meek? What? I'm thoroughly confused. I was thinking about ways that we could figure out how exactly to leave and go to a new place. And it seems like the most direct way is an arbitrary way. Perhaps next time I'll do a little bit more research and find a way to come up with a search in terms of finding thematic content. That actually sounds like a good idea. And for the sake of all things fluid, and the sake of all things curious, and are we trapped forever down here? I'm going to actually search for beauty, and we'll go to the first. No, beautiful as a qualifier. That seems to be more direct. A beautiful place. So this wraps up our first spot, which is in the wonderful world of what is the wonderful world we're in? The Insomnia main store. I was going to just choose a light colored destination, but we're not even in via the map, of course, but we're not even in a very dark place right now, so it wouldn't be that much of a contrast. So if we just do a search here, and what I love about this screen capture software is that it's going to allow us to, it's going to see this little window in the other window. Maturity, that sounds like a good idea, having all of them checked. Beautiful. And we're going to search for land and rentals, I believe. No, places. I actually have not played or engaged. Oh, okay. That's because of a typo. Good job. Trillion. Blame it on Trillion. Haven't been on Second Life in any capacity since the last time, so some things that I was pretty good doing are no longer. Okay, we can easily choose the first one, which actually looks pretty good. Whimsy, beautiful, and dangerous. Visitors welcome. Though what it actually is doesn't. We could just go to beautiful, but the traffic isn't listed, so I'm assuming that means there is no traffic. Skyboxes. Holodeck Skybox works of art. Beautiful, dirty, rich. Since 2009, that could offer a lot. Has decent traffic level too, as compared to the others. Beautiful deluxe body artistry, premier cosmetics. The Cyprian Garden, a stunningly beautiful BDSM something, P something. Zen Games, land rental on the beautiful Kaya Islands. Sky Ra, as opposed to Skyrim. Fantasy roleplay, a literate high fantasy RP sim. And the list goes on. Ooh, Slink main store, beautiful mesh feet. Well, we already did a store in this episode, so I think we should stick to something else. The portal and park could be curious, but also could open up a lot of doors, a lot of portals that we don't necessarily want to go down. A nude beach, Passion Bay Dance Club. So it looks like these all continue to go down. Let's go back up to the more adult-themed, stunningly beautiful. It says it's stunningly beautiful, and I don't know if that's simply a pun on the word stun. But I think there's only one way to find out. It's owned by the Obscura Land Group. It's an arts and culture and adult space. It certainly looks unique. I've never seen anything like this in my travels. Maybe we should do a little bit more info. Come lose yourself a while. Well, we have a little while left to lose, so about 8 minutes, so let's go. I should say that certain things in the virtual world, and this might be obvious, but certain things exist here that don't exist in the first life. And for me, I've never been very curious about the BDSM scene around me or virtually, and I do find it fascinating on Second Life, though, being able to access it. It looks like we have very few rules here, but they are strictly enforced. 1, adhere to the Linden Labs terms of service. 2, Respect the enjoyment and space of others in the garden. 3. Practice tolerance of various interests and fetishes. Do not force your beliefs and opinions on others. Aside from that, do indulge yourself. Play-ready objects will be clickable. If you click it and no pose balls appear, sit on it. Note the bottom sub should almost always sit first. We all know what that means. If you don't, you can Google it. I'm glad I actually have the sounds turned on because it's quite soothing here. Looks like quite a bit has been donated to keep this place functional and alive. We have everything from mushrooms to a waterfall. I'm tempted to just go explore out there, even though I do believe this is the way that people generally enter. I also make note of the mini-map. There are a few people here, which could afford some nice social interaction. Oh, even more than I thought. Well, let's take a look. Remember, keeping in mind what is beautiful. The great question. And just for funsies, it looks like yeah, here we go. That's actually screenshot worthy. If I knew my assistants here. I'm sure if I waited long enough, I'd find some very sexual poses to perform here. But I do have one that says coffee. Oh, but it took away my mug is in the wrong hand. Ah, that would be perfect. Let me drink air and let me drink everything else. Some of these animations do look a bit funky. Ah, a book, huh? Now how do I go back? Is there anything else that I could gain from this chair? Swap. Ah. Okay, I think we're done here. We only have a limited amount of time and should probably do a thorough investigation of this space, which I should say strikes me as beautiful. It is not the most awe-inspiring place I've been, but it certainly has an atmosphere that is worth understanding. And I should say even more so exploring, just not necessarily understanding. That would be a good side question, is if you can easily understand, does that make it easier to be part of the world that you're in? And in terms of understanding, I'm not going to engage that object. Otherwise, I'll need to truly restrict my video to a non-all ages group. For those of you who are really curious about seeing it, this is the Cyprian Garden. Understanding and beauty and aesthetic. If you understand it, does that change its effect of beauty on you? I do not know. Oh, it looks like our friend is now gone, though that could have been a good friend. A reminder. It looks like all of these have different degrees of donations, which means other people certainly appreciate them. Our friend is back. Good. Let's go see some human contact in this fringy space before we part ways here. Oh God. And now I'm hearing like moans of some kind. Or maybe it's just these I don't even know. Swans. Oh god. There's our... of glitchiness. Quota of the computer failing. Ah, there's actually a couple people here. I don't want to interrupt them because they're definitely editing. If you didn't know that that was the pose for editing, you would probably be pretty freaked out. That is indeed what people look like when they are editing their avatars. This place is actually quite huge, and some of it, quite frankly, is a bit too huge for me to understand or wrap my head around. When in doubt, just go in the water. You'll find it. You'll find your way. It also does always appeal to me how people put a little bit of effort into making a rather unique water floor. When they could have just made it completely flat and boring. It's almost too much of an issue if it's flat and boring. So it appears as though we've now entered an area outside of the Cyprian Garden called the Meredith Manor. The Meredith Manor, if I may, is considered still part of Cyprian Garden. I think we might have to call it quits for here and have this be the next starting point, because it is fascinating. And as we see, the sun appears to be changing course. There actually seems to be a little bit of smog in the area, perhaps because this is a, I don't know, an LA-inspired location. It's not fair of me to say that it's US-based. It could very well be. It's very well be created by anyone in the world. So here is the Meredith Manor. To recap, today we saw Insomnia. We thoroughly explored Insomnia. We saw their touchscreen, and we saw their stock and their displays of artistic mannequins. And we also talked a little bit about beauty, talked a little bit about understanding as well. And we explored this space too. And we got our bearings again, yet again. I sometimes wish that I definitely have the patience, but I wish I had more structure of thought and structure of desire in terms of what I wanted to see in this virtual world, because there is so much, and at times it's overwhelming to the point where you get overloaded. Also, I'm not part of any of these subcultures or communities. I'm just a drifter, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to participate in this, because the last, I don't know, 10 years or so of my life, I've been mostly a solitary solo gamer, and that certainly carries into most of my virtual engagement online, excepting, of course, the social networks. So coming in and continuing my drifterness through the fringes, to the places where I can be and not necessarily worry about encountering drastic social response, has been a pretty big point of my use of Second Life. And I hope to actually have more specific goals in mind for future instances, not only of this video series, but also of further future engagement in Second Life. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the YouTube thread, and I'd be happy to respond to them. If you don't, that's fine too. If you'd like to connect in the world of Second Life or contribute to the overall scope and arc of my being in Second Life, and this video series potentially, please let me know as well. Thank you for viewing as always, and see you again either this week or next week or the next time I have 30 minutes I want to devote to Second Life. Adios, says me and Trillion.